we made the littlest, cutest, chubbiest little skein of mini yarn, hand dyed by me, with some food colouring and some vinegar. Sometimes the hardest thing to do is just to get started. Hello, welcome back to my channel. My name is Jennifer and we're here today to dye some yarn. I bought some sock yarn and I have just wrapped around my arm like this, 20 grams, so that we can dye a little navy mini skein to match the Christmas socks that I want to cast on. I bought some hand dyed yarn and I wanted to make a contrasting colour for the heels and the toes. Took a bit for me to get started today, but I made myself a little Christmassy cup of coffee, just some decaf I chucked a dark chocolate lint ball in there with some hot milk. And I've got Return to Christmas Creek on Netflix in the background, and yeah, we're just gonna dye some yarn. I haven't done this in a while. I'm gonna do the method where I use vinegar and food colouring, and that's it. Let's get started. Okay, so first off I'll show you what we have. I've got the yarn. This is a 75% merino, I believe, 25% nylon sock yarn that I have measured out 20 grams of. It came in a comb and I have tied the ends around so that it doesn't get tangled, and I've also added a little piece of scrap yarn as a little third anchor here so that it stays in a nice little neat hank. I've got my coffee, which I'll just put over here. I have some, it says double strength white vinegar, I think you can use any strength. I have my yarn dyeing pot, just a little one from IKEA with some water in it. Some measuring cups that I never use that I thought I could probably just use as my yarn dyeing cups. I got these at the thrift store, I think for about $5. I think they're from Aldi, just these ceramic. And you can use any material you want. And some tongs to, you know, poke and prod the yarn. And of course my little food colouring gels that are expired, but I still use them. And what better way to use them than to dye some yarn? I want to make navy blue, so I've got a sky blue, Christmas red, brown and leaf green, and I think if I mix them together they'll make some sort of navy colour. And I've just got 2 little baby spoons I'm going to use as my yarn dyeing spoons, and I've already got some food colouring on them, so perfect. Yeah, so what I'm going to do is I am going to mix up there's only 3 steps really. When I read through the instructions, and I've done this once before as I said. So what you're going to do, you need about half a cup of vinegar to each 100 grams of yarn. I've only got 20, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a 1/4 cup. Just to make sure we have enough vinegar to saturate the yarn with. Just put that into the water, give it a little mixy mix, and I'm going to drop the yarn in. Just going to push it down with the tongs. These are also some bamboo tongs I got from IKEA that I use just for yarn dyeing. And we're going to let that marinate for 20 minutes. And while I let that marinate, I'm going to try and mix up my colours with a bit more water in one of these little measuring cups. I'll use the 3rd cup measure, and hopefully we can get some sort of navy blue colour to match the Christmas skein of sock yarn that I have. This is probably not the best thing to use because it catches on the wool a little bit, but yeah. Just making sure that it's all submerged in. You probably can't see it very well, but I'll show you a shot of it later. But yeah, just gonna soak this, just pre-soak step for the yarn, and I will see you back here in 20 minutes. Okay, so this is the best angle I could get it on. The tripod is very precariously propped up onto my daughter's little, what do you call it, like a Montessori high chair standing step stool thing she uses that she can cook with me. Anyway, this is the angle that we have. I ended up using just the blue, the red and the brown because I was running low on green and I didn't want it to lean too purple, so I added the brown just to make sure it stayed nice and dark, and hopefully we get the colour we want. It's all a bit of an experiment, isn't it? It's nice to mix in this white ceramic sort of mixing vessel so I can see the colour that might turn out, hopefully, fingers crossed. Oop, it's just dripping for me here now, so we're just gonna add it into this pot that I have drained of the vinegar water, not like within an inch of its life. I just sort of drained it enough and then filled it back up with some new tap water, just enough to cover the yarn and maybe a centimetre more so that it doesn't evaporate off during the heating process. And I'm just going to add in this dye and see what colour we get. So hopefully you can see. Just going to add it all in. Maybe scoop a bit of the water out to wash out this dye. Oh, it's actually leaving a bit aquamarine green that I can see. It's a very sort of dull day, dark and dreary and rainy here in Melbourne today. So I'm just going to use the spoon to prod the dye around a bit more, sort of try to get it to mix in to the rest of the water so we get, I'm hoping for quite an even colour, even distribution of colour. Not sure if I will get it because it looks like it's sort of pooling in the centre here a bit. Don't want to agitate the yarn too much, especially when it's heating on the stove because it might felt. So I'm just going to give it a bit more of a mix here and then we will go over to the stove and just heat it gently on a medium flame until all the dye or most of the dye has absorbed into the yarn. So I'll see you there in a little bit. Okay, so I've just got my gas stove on, just a very sort of medium low heat, might turn it up a little bit more, and I'm just going to wait till this comes to like a bit of a simmer, a few little bubbles, nothing drastic, and just see where it's at once it has come to temperature, and cook it a little bit until all the dye has absorbed and the water is sort of clear. That's when I know that the dye has all gone into the yarn, but it looks like the yarn has already taken up quite a bit of the dye, which is cool to see. I just realized this is going to be probably more than a 1 day process because we're going to have to wait for the yarn to dry before we see the final result, but that's okay. I'm glad we got the process started, and I'm excited to cast on this pair of Christmas socks with my hand-dyed yarn. I also want to see how much yarn it will take to make the contrast heel and toe, how many grams, and then I'll know for future reference how many grams to dye. But then again, I might use the extra to, make a little granny blanket, granny square blanket, maybe even. We'll see how we go. Maybe a granny stripe blanket. But for now, I'm just going to watch this pot until it comes up to a simmer. All right, bye. All right, so I've just turned the heat off, and you can see in the center there that the water is mainly clear. So it's nice to have a light colored pot so I can see what's happening in the water. What we're going to do is I'm just going to pop the lid on it and leave it to cool to room temperature, and then I'm going to fish out the yarn, put it on a towel and let it dry for, I don't know, maybe a day or two in this weather. And I will check back with you when it's done. So as you can see, that didn't take too much time and effort to dye the skein of yarn. I'm not sure that the colour has come out exactly as I wanted it to. It looks like some parts are quite dark, almost like a black, and some are lighter, but we'll see what the final result looks like. I'm thinking I might do contrast cuff as well, just to, show off the yarn a little bit more. And I was also thinking I want to try and do like a knit 2 purl 1 cuff but yeah, we'll work that out once we have the dye, once we have the yarn to use. But yeah, it didn't take too much effort to dye with food colouring and vinegar, probably things you might already have in your kitchen, and it's a nice little warming activity to do on a dreary day like today. It's quite weird actually, we're in November and it should be a lot sunnier and warmer in the southern hemisphere, but here we are, we're making the most of what we have. I'm looking forward to casting this pair of socks on in or before December and having it with me to knit at Christmas parties and things like that. I've sort of started decorating a little bit here, and you might see some of that in my next knitting podcast. But yeah, I will check back in with you once the yarn is all dried up and we can see what we have. I was also thinking that I might do like a giant granny square blanket with the leftovers. I mean, hopefully, I hope it'll be giant one day, but I like the idea of just going round and round in sort of a spiral until I run out of yarn, and then I don't have to really think about how big it will be or anything like that, because it will just be a large square and it will be finished when it's finished. And I also won't have, you know, extra bits of sock yarn knocking about in my stash when I'm trying to use it all up. So yeah, I will see you in a day or so. So this is the finished product, and it is, as you can see, very, very, very cute. It did come up with just where I tied the yarn around to secure it. It kind of covered the yarn a bit, so it made these sort of like white parts where the dye didn't reach, but that's okay. I think it adds a little bit more character. I was contemplating re-dyeing it, but I feel like it might make the yarn a bit too fluffy, because I'm not sure if you can notice, but the yarn is noticeably like fluffier. I think it might have bloomed during the dyeing process. And yeah, we ended up, the colours didn't mix super well. I feel like, because I added like a red and a blue and a bit of green, I feel like I needed to mix the dyes a little bit better, or use, you know, one of those electric milk frothers to mix the dye together to make it like really amalgamated and like more of a uniform colour. But I like that it has a little bit of character to it as well. Just something to think of. It's all an experiment. This is one of my first attempts at dyeing yarn, really, and I love now that I can just peel off like 20 grams from that cone of yarn you can see behind me, and do little colour experiments with each one. This is going to be going into my Christmas socks, and as you can see, we've started decorating for Christmas. I've got some fairy lights above here too that I'm not sure you can see, and we took our Christmas tree out, and it's all getting very festive. I think with 2 kids now, I really feel like I want to decorate more and be part of the festive spirit a little bit more. So we've made a run to Kmart and got a few little treats that hopefully we'll be able to use for many years into the future. But anyway, I'm getting sidetracked. This is the yarn. I've just rolled it up into like the cutest skein, isn't it so cute? But yeah, like I said, I use my arm. Just stretched or shrunk? No, I'm not sure. Anyway, I use my arm to sort of make this length, and here it is all unraveled, so you can see the reds in there. I was going more of a uniform navy blue, but you know what, it's hand dyed, it's got character. I'm really excited to keep experimenting and keep going with this series. So yeah, that is my skein of yarn that I dyed, and I'll probably show you in an upcoming knitting podcast what it looks like knit up into a sock, and then maybe into the very start, maybe this will be the very center of my granny square blanket that I decide to make when the time comes. As I said, I don't want to have too many scraps in there, but in my stash, but I'm happy to have a blanket whip, work in progress, going in my stash instead of just having random balls of yarn. Another idea is also to make like a little advent calendar for my yarny friend. I don't think she watches this, but maybe if I start dyeing more, I can put some of those scraps into like a little advent calendar for her, and make it throughout the year. That was one of the ideas that I've had that I haven't really followed through on yet, but you never know, there's always next Christmas. And yeah, I'm looking forward to dyeing heaps more, looking forward to knitting it up and seeing what it looks like, looking forward to putting it into a blanket. There's just, the possibilities are endless, and I like being able to like document the experimentation process in these videos as well, because there will be lots of color experiments going, and I feel like I don't know, I'm just really excited to see what other colors I can make, and maybe even do like a series of like pastel colors or natural colors. I have been collecting avocado pits in the freezer, pits and skins, to see if I can use those to dye some yarn. But yeah, I'm really excited, and I will be filming a knitting podcast soon, so you'll see hopefully some of this knitted up, and I have been working on a lot of other projects too that I will share with you shortly. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed just sort of seeing the experimentation, and I'm excited to see how far I will go, like Moana, with this. Oh, somebody's waking up. She's a little bit bigger than the last time we saw her. Oh, there's a little hand. Oh, okay. What a little sweetie. Anyway, thank you again so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.